Hello, everyone. Oh, come on. You can do better than that. You're almost ready to go home or make some money, do some other things. Hello, everyone. Hello. Okay, I'm going to talk today about the right stuff is the never give up stuff, because I've had a lot of things happen, adversity over my life that I had to work through. And I think about as we, as a civilization, continue to inspire and motivate and not give up to do great things, that's what I want to talk to you about today. And so I remember on my first, I guess really it was before I was born. It was like in May of 1961. John F. Kennedy was petitioning Congress to send a human to the moon and back safely in the next decade. And that was one of the most technologically challenging things that we're going to do as a nation. And at the same time, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was flying to the deep south to help console the freedom riders that were getting bombed. That was a time in our history when we were doing these two very divergent things, but we had to do them for the sanctity of our nation. And when I think about September of '61, I call this my pre-me pictures. This is my mom and dad, Deems and Grace Melvin. They were thinking about starting a family. So I wasn't in there yet, but it was pre-me, a pre-me picture. And how is this kid going to be raised? Where are they going to go to school? What is he going to do with his life? How are we going to inspire him to be the next generation of explorers or whatever he wants to be? And so that was September of '61. I was born in '64, and there was this guy named Gene Roddenberry who put together this show that was kind of cool, and you had this woman named Lieutenant Uhura who was the first African-American woman on television that wasn't in a subservient role. She was the chief communications officer in the Starship Enterprise. It was also the first time that Captain Kirk, you had the first intergalactic kiss when he kissed the green woman, right? So in the mid-'60s, you had all of these firsts, these things going on. I had a friend, Ronald McNair, who saw Nichelle Nichols on television in the '60s and said, if they got women like that in space, I want to be an astronaut. And so he applied, he got in, he flew in space. And then I think about this picture in '68. I was 4 years old. This picture is called Earthrise. It was taken by Bill Anders on Apollo 8 going around the moon. And this picture fueled the environmental movement. It fueled the EPA. This one picture let us see our planet in its blue majesty, its brilliance. It galvanized us. It made us actually stop spraying hairspray when we realized that the hairspray, the fluorohydrocarbons, were causing a hole in the ozone layer. We took that data and we passed a law to stop using those fluorohydrocarbons to close our ozone hole. So this was a 4-year-old picture for me. And then when I was 5, Neil and Buzz walked on the moon. One small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. I was 5 years old, but I was holding the antenna on the television, trying to look around the side. Don't move, Leland. I'm like trying to hold it in so they can see the picture. But everyone asked me after this picture, do you want to be an astronaut? And I said no, because I don't see someone who looks like me. And my dad talked about Arthur Ashe, who was a tennis player who trained 5 blocks down the street from where I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia. So I wanted to be a tennis player, Arthur Ashe. My mother, and also we need to make sure we use the right language. I changed this. Neil will be okay with me changing this from the mankind to humankind, because we want to make sure that everyone is able to be part of this journey. And so when I was, that's Arthur Ashe and the people that worked and lived down the street from me that inspired me to play tennis. And I think about growing up, my mom, she decided to read to me every night, The Little Engine That Could. And this little engine, it never gave up. Just like sometimes what you do in this tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 level of not giving up to make sure that your customers have what they need, to make sure that they have the services that give them the aspirations and inspiration to inspire their kids with this new library called the internet, this technology. And so The Little Engine That Could gave me that. The Curious George, getting in trouble, flying in space, doing all these things. I wanted to be like Curious George. So these books were foundational for me, not giving up believing in myself, and staying curious. And then when my mother decided to give me this moment with this bread truck, my dad drove this Merita bread truck home, and he said, "Leland, this is our camper." I said, "No, it's not. I can read, it says Merita bread and rolls on the side of that." And I thought we were going to the bread business. I thought I'm going to be, delivering the bread, my dad's driving, But he said, "No, I have a vision for us. This is our camper." And over that summer, we rewired the truck. We built bunk beds. We plumbed a Coleman stove. We plumbed a propane tank into a Coleman stove. We were building this vehicle, and it wasn't until my father painted the van that I saw it as a recreational vehicle. Sometimes we can't see past the labeling. Sometimes we give up on something because it doesn't look like it's supposed to look, to repurpose something, to build it in a different way to get that solution. And that's what I saw in this lesson. And then my mother gave me the age-appropriate, non-OSHA certified chemistry set, where I created the most incredible explosion in her living room. It went a little something like this. She went like, "Here you go, son. Here's a chemistry set. Make sure you read the instructions." I took the instructions over my head, I threw them, and I created the most incredible explosion, burned a hole in her carpet. She came over and had a strong hand in my development. She was from downtown. But that moment, it galvanized me. It told me that I can mix these dissimilar chemicals together to create something powerful. It activated my brain. I got in trouble, but it was okay because I knew what it meant to be a scientist. I could now be a scientist. All I needed was goggles and a lab coat, right? And so these experiences that we have, these experiences that I had as a child, helped me on my path of not giving up and believing in myself. I love sports. I love playing football. And in my high school year, how many football fans in here? Any football fans in here? Okay, a few of you. So I was a wide receiver on a running team. So if you know anything about football, that means I block a lot, right? So my homecoming game, we're down by a touchdown. You guys work with me here. I'm running down the sideline. Y'all scream. The crowd is screaming. I'm running down the sideline. The ball is coming into my hands. By a show of hands, how many of you think I dropped the ball? By a show of hands, how many think I caught the ball? By a show of hands, who doesn't really care? The rest of you, okay. So I dropped the ball in the end zone, homecoming game, friends and family there. I felt this big. I walked to the sideline, and my coach looks me in the eyes and he says, "Leland," he grabs my face and says, "Leland, I believe in you. Go catch the ball." "Coach, I suck. I'm going to sit down. I'm embarrassed. I don't want to get out there. I'm afraid." He says, "Go back out there." I take the same play out to the huddle. Running down the sideline the second time, the crowd is screaming. The ball's coming to my hands. This time, I'm laser beam focused and can read Spalding on the side of the ball. I catch the ball. We win the game. And unbeknownst to me, there was a college scout from the University of Richmond looking to see if I could play for the Spiders. When I dropped the first pass, he walked out of the stadium. When he heard the crowd screaming the second time, he looked back in the stadium, and he saw this guy like doing a little dance, like, in the end zone. And he said, "That guy failed in such a horrific way." His friends, his family were there at his homecoming game, but he didn't give up. Maybe he can play for us. That one catch resulted in a $180,000 scholarship to the University of Richmond because someone believed in me. And throughout my journey, I was always told, "I think I can." It was inside of me. I just didn't know it at the time. And that led to University of Richmond. I already knew how to blow things up as a as a chemist, as a young chemist, so I majored in chemistry. And my freshman year, we went 0-10, goose egg and 10. It was like this crazy time, but I kept going. We turned it around. And my senior year, I got drafted to play with the Detroit Lions. Any Detroit Lions fans in here? Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm not a fan. They cut me, so I pulled a hamstring in training camp, and that was the end of my Lions career. But I started graduate school in material science engineering at UVA, and then I went to play with the Dallas Cowboys. Any Cowboys fans? Okay, they cut me too, so no allegiance there. So tried some football, went back and finished my master's degree in material science, and then what every former NFL player does, what do? They go work for NASA, right? So worked in fiber optic sensors, using optical fibers as strain, temperature, and chemical species sensors to wrap around these external tanks and these embedded tanks for measuring, these multi-measurements for looking at damage in aerospace vehicles. And I did this for a little while, and a friend of mine said, Leland, you'd be a great astronaut. Here's our draw tower for making optical fiber sensors with lasers and things. He said, you'd be a great astronaut. And I just looked at him and was like, really, me, an astronaut? He handed me an application. I didn't fill it out. And I said, I'm not going to be an astronaut. I threw it away. That same year, another friend of mine filled the application out, and he got in. His name was Charlie Camarda. And I said to myself, wait a minute. If that knucklehead can get in, I can get in. So I applied the next election, and I got in. And if you guys can see me in the picture anywhere, it's 362 U.S. astronauts. I am in there somewhere. Can you find me? The right, in the middle. It's a big screen. Come on. Where am I? In the middle? To the right? Well, if you can't find me there, can you find me now? In the front? In the right? I'm up there somewhere. Can you find me? So here's, if you can't find me, there I am in the back there. So 25 astronauts were selected out of 2,500 people. Lots of testing, psychological, physical, and the big test was to sit around a table with people who have actually walked on the moon, John Young, to tell them what you've done significant in your life to try to impress them to become an astronaut. And I guess I had done something right, so I got in the Corps. When you get in the Corps, you actually do land survival training, water survival training, you do all this different training. You fly on a zero-G airplane, and we call it the vomit comet because some people get sick. I did not, but you can do all these things. And after the training, I went to Moscow to work with the first crew that was going to the International Space Station. Bill Shepard's in the middle, he's a Navy SEAL. Yuri Gudzinko was the pilot on the right, and Sergei Krikalev was the engineer on the left. Getting them ready to fly in space for Expedition 1, the first expedition. And when they launched, I came back home and it was ready for me to start training. The first training that I was going to do was in this thing called the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory. It's a 5 million gallon pool that has a submerged space station and space shuttle. We wear this suit that's a cross between a Michelin Man and a Pillsbury Doughboy. It's our EVA suit. And in this suit, there's a styrofoam block that you use to clear your ears, if you're the kind of person that needs to squeeze to clear your ears. They forgot to put mine in. We went down about 20 feet. I told the test director to turn the volume up in the headset. At that point, I felt myself getting pulled out of the pool. The doctor comes over to me, and he's talking, and he's moving his lips. And I think he's playing with me because I can't hear anything he's saying. They pop my helmet off. He comes over, touches my right ear, and the blood just flows down the side of my face. I am completely deaf. Something happened in that transit going down and coming up that rendered me deaf. And it's kind of hard to fly if you're a deaf astronaut. They took me to the hospital. They did emergency surgery. They looked around, pushed on my stay piece, looked to see if my oval and circular windows were damaged, to see if there was something called a perilymph fistula, things were leaking out. Everything was intact. No one knew what had happened. And after the surgery, these are the faces of my doctors when I woke up from the anesthesia. I knew that things were not too good. About 3 weeks later, my hearing came back, but the doctors didn't know why or what happened. So I was medically disqualified to fly in space. They said, you will never fly in space. And my friends told me I should quit, sue NASA, write the tell-all book, and get paid. And I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm not going to do that. And so but while in the hospital, the NASA administrator, Daniel Golden, came to see me. He was flying to Colorado, Civic Aerospace, and stopped in Houston before going back to D.C., and he said, we had a problem with the Hubble Space Telescope. When it was first launched, it needed corrective glasses because the mirror was ground incorrectly, and so it had this problem, almost like cataracts. And he said that we never gave up on the Hubble telescope. We figured out, a community of people came together and figured out how to fix it in spacesuits with bulky gloves. This vehicle was never meant to be fixed with astronauts doing spacewalks. And so he wrote me this note saying, the first image taken by the Hubble was 7,000 light years away from Earth. It's 1 light year in length. It's called the Eagles Nebula. It's the nursery where stars are actually born. And he was trying to inspire me and motivate me and tell me that, I've never given up on Hubble. I will never give up on you. He even gave me a copy of this picture. And he wrote his cell phone on the back of it. And he said, call me anytime you need something. And I was thinking about calling him one day, and then he got fired. I'm like, oh, man. It's like my man in the yellow hat is gone, right? So I'm trying to figure out what to do. They're trying to figure out what to do with me because the doctors still will not let me fly. They send me to Washington, D.C. to work in education. We're trying to inspire kids to nominate their teachers to become astronauts. And so I go there, and I'm driving back from D.C. to my home in Lynchburg, Virginia. I get a phone call from my boss, who's new to NASA. She says, Leland, the countdown clock is now counting up. And I knew at that point that all my friends on Space Shuttle Columbia were dead. I turned around. I drove back to D.C. I then went to the parents' home of David Brown. He's the astronaut in the top left corner. Went to his parents' house the night of the accident to console them, to figure out what to say to them after this such tragic, tragic loss of our friends and family. And I'll never forget what happened. I hugged his mom, Dottie. I started crying. I reached down to hug his father, Judge Brown, and he turned to me and he looked up and he said, Leland, he said, the biggest tragedy would be if we don't continue to fly in space to honor their legacy. And at that moment, I thought, well, I'm not flying. I'm not medically qualified to fly. And I'm going to have to figure out what way I will honor that legacy. And so from that point, we fly in the NASA airplane to the different memorial services around the country to honor our fallen heroes. And on every takeoff and landing, I noticed a gentleman sitting to the right of me, taking notes. And when I'm ready to leave NASA headquarters to fly back to Houston to figure out what I'm going to do with my life as a non-flying astronaut, the flight surgeon, who is the head of all the flight surgeons, calls me in his office and he says, Leland, I believe in you. Here's a waiver for you to fly in space. And I think if you stay the course, if you believe in yourself, if you don't give up, if you surround yourself with a community of people that have your back, those are the things that happen. Having that faith and belief that those things can happen. And I went home, I took this piece of paper, look what I got, to the flight surgeons, and soon after that, I got assigned to a flight, STS-122. When you get assigned to a flight, they allow you to bring your family in to take a picture in your orange pumpkin suit, right? But my family was in Virginia, so I was trying to figure out, who am I going to take with me? So I get to the photo lab, and I say, well, I'm going to take my dogs. So I sneak them into the back. They're barking. I've got milk bones. They're eating. Everything's working out. When they stop barking, I get in the suit. I walk over to the chair, and they start running towards me, and I tell the photographer to start shooting. Hold the shutter. Just hold it. And I get this picture. And this is what I think of every time I look up at the night sky, every time I think of, innovation, building, creating. I think of trying to get my dogs to space and trying to ensure that we inspire the next generation of explorers. And so STS-122, February 7th, this is our crew going up. We went up in Space Shuttle Atlantis. It was an incredible launch, 3, 2, 1 liftoff. You're shaking, you're rattling. Your head is moving so fast that when you look at the screens, they look like squiggly lines. And at about 2.5 minutes, the solid rocket booster is jettisoned, and now the ride gets much smoother. You feel about 3 Gs through your chest. You now are in space after 8.5 minutes. We get there. This is the space station coming up about 3 miles away. My job was to use that robotic arm in the top right corner of the space station to install a Columbus laboratory, which had been, the European Space Agency had been waiting 10 years to get this installed. And when I got this assignment, the German flight controllers who are going to be working this mission were in Houston in mission control. And the flight director called me to come over and to meet the flight controllers, and they're like high-fiving me and chest bumping me and like, "You're going to install our baby, right?" I said, "Yeah, And so I walk over, and this one guy, he's blocking my exit. He's not letting me get out of the way, I'm like, "Can I help you, sir?" He says, "Mr. Melvin, we've been waiting 10 years. Don't screw it up." So I get to space. We're installing the Columbus laboratory. I'm pulling it out of the payload bay of the shuttle using the robotic hand controllers, and everything's going really, really well. And then we get it closer and closer to the station, and the motion just stops. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, "Don't screw it up, Leland." But the ready-to-latch indicators, there are 4 ready-to-latch indicators that let you know if you're in alignment as you get closer. There was enough spring force in those ready-to-latch indicators to push on the vehicle to keep it from getting installed. One little pull on the hand controller, it was now docked to the space station, and everyone in Europe was like, "Leland, Leland, Leland." I thought that would be my aha moment, installing this Columbus laboratory, our #1 objective for the mission. This paled in comparison to what happened next. Peggy Whitson, the first female commander in the green shirt in the middle, she invited us over to dinner in the Russian segment. She said, "You guys bring the rehydrated vegetables, we'll have the meat." So we float over with a bag of vegetables. We get there. There's African American, Asian American, French, German, Russian, the first female commander, breaking bread at 17,500 miles per hour, going around the planet every 90 minutes, seeing a sunrise and a sunset every 45, all while listening to Sade Smooth Operator. It blew my mind, right? And like, "Smooth Operator," And so we're having this meal, and I look out the window in my hometown, Virginia, and I'm thinking my family's down there breaking bread, our community's celebrating me being in space, and 5 minutes later, we're over Paris, where Leo Eilhart's is from. And it's, they're probably having some cheese and a little wine and something, And then Yuri's looking off to Moscow. In this one little pass around our planet, we're all connected back to the planet. And lets us know that if we work together as one family, that we can do amazing things. If I flip the wrong switch, everyone dies. Everyone dies. And that's why we're so bonded. And I just wish we could get this perspective shift that we all get, this cognitive shift in our heads, and bring that back down to the earth. Because we all need to know we need to work together as one family and one team. And that's the handiwork after I docked the space station, the Columbus laboratory to the space station. We were about to come home, and we decided to do a little experiment with water and M&Ms. Take a look at this. Well, after you show your jerseys, right? Cowboys and Lions, even though they cut me, I did have to take their jerseys to space. But here's a little video of what we do in space with our water.
Workout the commander's going to make. Yeah. It's going to fire me, so.
Wow. All right. Bike. Yeah. Whoa.
Come on, you guys.
All right. Here, this is space food.
An M&M
Wait,
sandwich.
Leland,
Food.
let me
yeah.
do that before you start doing that.
Too late.
That looks yummy. Yeah, that's my sandwich, man.
We need to do a cross
dessert
cam
sandwich. Good contact.
Hazardous.
Hazardous. That's a good one, Leland. It's got a nice bubble in it, too.
Here you go, Dan.
They had to separate the straw somehow. Oh, there's M&M's floating up there.
You know what, 4 in there.
It has to be. It has to be big. It has to be small enough to be able to eat in one
There you
one
go.
hit.
Yeah.
Oh, a surface one. Look at that.
Surface.
Have we seen a surface one?
Very
I
good.
don't get captured.
Two
Well,
surface.
Hang on a second. Let's get this one. Whoa! Whoa! Sorry, dude. Oh.
That's going to be a
You want me to
meal,
hold
man.
that? I'll hold it. I got it.
Knock one out.
Just really knocked it through.
It's like croquet.
I was.
Billiards. Are you ready for separation?
Wait.
Separate. Hold on.
Go
one
ahead.
more.
Oh man.
What's the
Dude.
What's the ice
You
game?
got-
My.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Curling. That's going to be a
Curling.
meal, man.
Yeah.
That's 2 sips.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, don't choke on it.
Good blobology.
Go for it, L-Dog.
You got
Got it. Whoa! Almost on the lens.
I know. Water than you think, huh?
So I get to space safely. I install the Columbus laboratory. I almost choked to death on a water bubble enemy. My mother saw this video. She's a home economics teacher. She was like, Leland, you could have choked to death. I've never taught you to put that much food in your mouth. She was ready to do this again. You know? So that was my first mission. Had another mission, 2009. We did some incredible things, installed some parts in space. But the thing that was so important to me was that we did it with people from all over the world. And the first time 2 African American men were in space at the same time. We worked together, we played football. We actually flipped the Super Bowl coin in space. Let me show you this to you. This is what it looks like. Super Bowl coin, 2010. This is how you flip a coin in space. We're on the International Space Station with Commander Williams and Commander Hobaugh. Commander Williams is representing the AFC, Army, and Commander Hobaugh is representing the Navy, the NFC. We're going to do a coin toss here. Here are both sides of the coin. This is heads. This is tails. You guys do understand?
We see him.
Okay, here we go. The coin's gone. How are we going to decide?
Never gonna land.
Okay, well, let's do rocks, paper, scissors.
All right.
On 3, and then we shoot.
3.
1, 2, 3. What are you doing, man? On 3, shoot.
Whoa, 3 and then shoot. That was
Three and
right.
then shoot.
Okay, all right.
Let's do it again.
1, 2, 3, shoot. Ah! Go Navy. We gotta go find that coin though.
All right.
Let's go. So this time, I ended up lacerating the top of my head as I hit the top of the space station. My mother was not happy with that either. So, but you know, all of this exploration is about us. You know, again, as I keep saying, working together, looking at the planet from this vantage point. You see the Middle East. There's no fighting. There are no wars there. It's all of us working together as one family. And we all know what's going on down on planet Earth. But I think if we try to get this perspective shift to push it down, to make a difference, to change things, will make us better. The Andes Mountains, this is the thin blue line that keeps us alive. That little blue line is our atmosphere that we sometimes take for granted. And this is my hometown, Lynchburg, Virginia, from night. The footprint that we leave as human beings on this planet, the lights that we turn on at night, are the outline of what we see of humanity on our planet. It's incredible to see that. In my last moment as an astronaut, I was at the Texans game. Any Texans fans in here? Okay, a few. Well, I never played for them, so they never cut me, so go Texans. I brought Andre Johnson's jersey home, and we had flown into space. And so I just want to tell you, I'm all about helping inspire the next generation. What you do to bring this broadband into people's homes helps kids see the possibilities of their future. And I thank you for doing that, because there's so many people that need this access so that they can know that they'll have passionate learning experiences and they'll be able to think of themselves as being astronauts or whatever they want to do. And it will give that community the chance to make a difference on our planet. So I thank you for your time. Godspeed on your journey. Keep inspiring and motivating and using this technology to make a difference in the lives of all of us. Thank you.